delighted to be here with international best-selling author and star on Ancient Aliens, Andrew Collins. Welcome, Andrew.
It's great to be here, and I look forward to being in Sedona very, very soon.
We are so very excited that you are coming here to our magnificent Red Rock Paradise and speaking at the phenomenal Cosmic Awakening event, Andrew. What will you be presenting at that event?
Well, what I'm going to be doing is talking about the Denisovans. The Denisovans is a human type that we didn't even know existed until 2012, when a small bone that was found in a cave in Siberia revealed that it belonged to a type of human that had never been even suspected of existing. It's a sister group of the Neanderthals. They're now known as Denisovans. And we shared, Homo sapiens, shared a common ancestor with both the Denisovans and the Neanderthals, probably as far back as around 500 to 700,000 years ago. And then we all split, we all went our different ways. We all created our own different physical appearance, our own mindsets, our own genomes, our own material cultures. And, for us, we were late developers, basically. For the Neanderthals, they developed in their own way, but the Denisovans seem somehow to have advanced quicker than everyone. And in the cave in Siberia, there's been incredible evidence of high human behavior and high culture. They manufactured the most beautiful jewelry, including the so-called Denisovan bracelet made of this translucent green stone known as clitorite, which changes color in different light, which is beautiful. This is at least 45,000 years old. There's bone needles that show that they manufactured tailored clothing, fragments of musical instruments to show that they understood music. They had the most incredible stone tool technology, which went on to influence all the toolkit of the Paleolithic peoples, all the way down to Neolithic times, and many more things, which suggests that they gifted us, modern humans, civilization itself. Why? Because they had a unique mindset. It would seem as if they had autistic genes, which allowed them to advance more quickly than other types of archaic humans. They had what we'd call savant-like qualities. Their brains operated in a different fashion to us, one which enabled them to understand and record the movements of the sun, moon, and stars to an incredible degree, to the point that they understood not just the numbers involved with these cycles, but projected them forward to the future, possibly even creating the idea of cyclic time. And the importance of certain key numbers like 54, 108, 432, which become so important to us today within different cultures around the world. And I think it was the Denisovans who gave us that. And they gave it to us almost in a package and said, never forget the importance of these numbers, incorporate them into your myths, your legends, into your architecture, into your sacred items, and never forget them. And we didn't. The only trouble is, I think we forgot where we got them from in the first place, because the legacy of the Denisovans had been all but forgotten. The only thing which seems to be preserved is the fact that amongst the founders of religion were giants. And there is no question that the anatomical remains that we have so far of the Denisovans suggest that they were incredibly large in size and stature. In fact, if you want to try and imagine them, just think of the largest wrestlers that you see in a ring. That's very similar to their physical appearance. I'm not saying that every Denisovan was like that, but it does definitely appear that some of them were of giant stature. And I think this is very important, and that the idea that we may have got the rudiments of civilization from this giant population is connected somehow with the Denisovans. But the Denisovans weren't just in Siberia. They were all over, certainly the eastern part of the Eurasian continent. And it would seem as if they reached the American continent as well. And that there are many different First Nations who have at least some Denisovan ancestry. Among them are the Ojibwa and the Cree in the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence River region. They have a number of stories about those who were present before they occupied these same regions. And they called them the Thunder People. The Thunder People were of large stature. They could transform into these, giant birds, like giant forms of eagles, simply by donning on these cloaks of feathers, and then they would become the birds, and then by taking them off, removing these feather coats, they would resume human form. Well, we know today what that represents. It obviously talks about some kind of shamanic caste, groups of shamans and shamanesses. And this, I think, is what is being remembered here, the fact that we have here this caste, this group of large figures who I definitely would link with the Denisovans and their pronounced hybrid descendants. And that it is for this reason that the Ojibwa and the Cree and various other First Nations have a percentage to this day of Denisovan DNA. And I'll be talking all about this, but beyond this, I'll be talking about what we call the star web. This is the entrance into the afterlife, or the sky world, that was almost like the secret knowledge that was seemingly passed on by the Thunder People to many of the First Nations. And it was referred to also as the path of souls' death journey, the path of souls being the Milky Way, the road or river along which the dead and the souls of shamans used to reach the other world or the afterlife. It involved certain key celestial locations, including the Milky Way, the stars of Orion, and also the constellation of Cygnus, the celestial bird, which in Ojibwa tradition was known as the Thunderbird, which is intriguing because obviously you have celestial thunderbirds, therefore, and on the ground you have these terrestrial, physical thunderbirds or thunder people in the form of these Denisovan hybrids. The whole thing is related. The whole thing is part of this bigger story, and that's what I'm going to be bringing to the Cosmic Awakenings conference. But then we have a special event on the Monday.
We certainly do. And we will be meeting at the Bell Rock Plaza at 7:30 to gather and jump onto a van. We can take up to a dozen people with us, and our tour guide will be Crystal Starweaver. We will meet in the Bell Rock Plaza and head to the first site that you have identified as a key portal site linked to the Rendlesham binary code, and there we'll perform a ritual linking. So help us understand how you identified this site, Andrew, and the ritual linking we'll be doing.
Well, we're talking about almost an alternative view of alien contact and the UFO phenomena. It's very easy to see this as simply an extraterrestrial idea, that's something that's been around for the last 70 years. But I think there's something much bigger going on out there, something that involves interdimensional contact, something that's outside of normal space-time itself. So it's not governed by what we call linear time. And we have evidence today that suggests that there are intelligences involved with portal sites around the world, including Sedona, that are not necessarily extraterrestrial, but they relate to a multi-dimensional realm, what we call the N-world, basically. And it's something which exists out there. It's something that we can barely perceive because we only exist on 3 dimensions. We can't possibly see fully into these hyperdimensional or multi-dimensional realms. All we can ever see is the echoes of them. It's almost like we can only ever see the shadows, the echoes. And these intelligences, if you can imagine them as like a shining diamond, but that shining diamond exists on a multi-dimensional level, and we can't see that. All we can see are the rays of rainbow-coloured light that are cast off from its presence. That, in many ways, is what we are talking about with these portal sites, in the sense of the seeing of light forms, of structured craft, perhaps the appearance of cryptids, like dogmen or big cats or strange things like this, and other types of visitations and time slips. They are all echoes, all part of a bigger collective, a bigger consciousness that relates to these n-dimensional beings that are out there. And these experiences seem to cluster around certain locations around the world. There are various names for them. We know them obviously as portal sites today, but they're also vortex sites. And of course, window areas was the old term that was used in the past in the UFO subject. And I think it is at these places that we can make contact with the M beings. And this is something that we've been attempting to do at various of them. We're talking about Rendlesham Forest in East Anglia in England, up north in Scotland in the Orkney Islands, and also a place which I'll be talking about called Bempton in Yorkshire, where incredible strange phenomena has been going on over the last 10 to 15 years. I mean, extraordinary stuff. I was there just a matter of a few weeks ago, and fact-finding, getting some information, for these lectures. And at all these places, what we try and do is assume that communication is possible, and we've been getting incredible responses using sound recorders, and it's very abstract stuff, very low frequency bursts of activity, strange static bursts that seem to be in sequences that have numerical connections with each other, and it's almost like if we assume that something truly is going on here, that we are almost forming a common language that allows us to connect with these multi-dimensional intelligences that seem to be there. And I think that this is building, and I think that when I come to Sedona, we're going to get another piece of the jigsaw, because as you mentioned, Sedona itself is one of the 7 sites that's mentioned in the binary code message that was given at Rendlesham in 1980. The story, for those that don't know it, is that there were US servicemen at this base, this RAF base, which was then occupied by the US Air Force, and they saw a light come down into the local forest, which is called Rendlesham Forest, and they went out to investigate. They encountered this small object, only about 9-10 feet in length. One of the guys, Jim Peniston, actually went up and touched the object, and it had strange symbols on the side of it. And the largest of these symbols he touched, and at which point he got this massive download of noughts and ones, which went through round his head. And the next day, he couldn't get them out of his head. So he thought, I'll write them down, and he scribbled them down in his notepad. And I'll be honest, they weren't noticed really by anybody, and he just forgot about them for years until eventually somebody said, what are they, in your notepad? And he said, well, I don't know, I just felt compelled to write them down. And it turned out that they were a binary code message. And this was a very enigmatic message, wasn't that long. And it seems to suggest that it comes from the future. And it gives an origin point of 8100, which seems to relate to a time frame as opposed to geographical coordinates. And with it came these geographical coordinates, several places around the world. Some of them are obvious, like the Great Pyramid, the Nazca Lines, the Karakol, this temple complex in Belize, Mount Tai in China, the Naxos Gate on one of the Aegean islands of Greece, which is somewhere that I've featured in some of my books. But then some more, places which are more enigmatic, one of which obviously is Sedona. Now, Sedona, obviously, we know is a great New Age center, but one of the coordinates give us this place which nobody has done any work at. And yet the binary code message suggests that this is going to become really important in the future, this location. And we need to go there. We need to find out what's there. Now, there may be nothing there, but we need to connect it, not only with Rendlesham, but within the world grid itself. What we're going to do, we'll do a little ritual there, we'll do a meditation. We will monitor this. We'll have sound recorders, we'll have some other instrumentation, and we'll see what happens. And I suspect that something will happen. And, I invite everybody out there to take part in this, because I think this is going to be a unique experiment. Because I don't think anybody else has done this before. And, I've been to various of the binary code sites already. In May, I'm going to another one in China, which is Mount Tai, and going to do the same thing there with a group. And hopefully within the next couple of years, I'll have done the lot, and I'll tie the lot together. So, as I said, the binary code message is not about sites that have been important necessarily, but what will become important in the future. And Sedona forms a part of this process, and I'm excited that we can do this. I mean, the opportunity is there, and I look forward to doing it. And clearly I'll tell you this whole story in greater detail on our special event on the Monday, which obviously you'll tell people how they can apply to be there.
Yes. Well, we will start out in Turkey Creek Trail to do the linking of the Rendlesham binary code site. However, then we'll be going on to Lizard Rock. And those of us who live in Sedona are aware that Lizard Rock actually represents the head of the serpent, which runs along the entire surface of the Thunder Mountain. And we can get fairly close to that, and you have envisioned that there might be some kind of opening to a cave in the mouth of the serpent?
I think there is. I mean, this goes back a good few years. And I actually had this light sleep, if you like, when I was at a conference in Arizona many years ago. I was there to give a talk on something else, I can't remember what it was. And I just found myself in Sedona, somewhere at that time I'd never been, going onto high ground and entering into a small, it was only quite small, cave, almost just like a rock fissure more than anything else. And wondering where I was. Well, in fact, actually I followed it. I was following into it, this lizard, and it was almost like, this is the name of the place. It's Lizard Rock, and that's how it came to me. And I thought, well, okay, I'm here now. What is the importance of this site? And I felt it was almost like an oracle place, somewhere that could speak to you, somewhere that was very important to the absolute origins of what Sedona represents as far as today with its whole, New Age consciousness. And of course, the ancestors of the Native American First Nations of the region. But what I didn't know, of course, and it was you that obviously told me, is that this was the, not just the head of a lizard, but the head of a snake or a serpent, and that its body was formed by Thunder Mountain. Well, by this time, I'm now working on the Denisovans, and particularly their connection with North America and their association with the Thunder people. And what we found, or what we're finding, is that sites that seem to be associated with the Thunder people do have this association with thunder, place names, but also the fact that there may be strange weather conditions and stuff like that. And I thought, this has got to be linked with the Denisovans. If they were in the area of Sedona, this is their area. This is the place that we can make contact with them. And so that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to do a ritual meditation at Lizard Rock. I know, as you've mentioned, that it's difficult to get to the top of it, so we may not be able to get into any small caves or anything like that. But at a safe point, we'll find a nice place. We'll do a ritual meditation, and we will link with the Denisovans, the Thunder people, and we'll ask them to help us understand their knowledge, their role in the past, what wisdom they passed on to our own human ancestors. And I look forward to that as well. So, two different areas of this: interdimensional beings, and Thunder people, stroke Denisovans. Should be an incredible 4 days, basically, for the whole conference and our special event on the Monday.
Yes, on Monday, we'll be doing those visitations to the sites from 8 a.m. to noon. Then we'll break for lunch from noon to 2. And then at 2 o'clock, we will return to the Creative Life Center, and you'll be giving a 2-hour presentation and also offering a book signing. Will you be talking during that 2-hour presentation about the Rendlesham binary code and Thunder people?
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you won't stop me talking, to be honest.
Fantastic. Well, we're very excited about it, Andrew, and I'll make sure that everyone knows how they can join us on both the adventure as well as your talk at the Creative Life Center. We're also going to create a video of your presentation, and people can purchase a link to that video and receive it the following day as well. So making sure that as many people as possible can enjoy and learn from that.
Okay, and in the meantime, if people want to learn more about the Thunder people, there's a good article I've done on it, which is available via my website, andrewcollins.com. Just go onto there, just scroll down the main opening news page, and the link is there. Have a read of that, and that will give you a background into what we're going to be doing. I'm also just about to put up online, and I'll link this to the website as well, a talk that I did on, interdimensional beings and end beings, whatever, just last week, again, to give you a background into where I'm coming from with all of this. So that you'll find the link for that also on andrewcollins.com.
And your phenomenal book, The Cygnus Key, which just came out recently, and it is one of my favorite books of all time, and I mean that sincerely. I truly enjoyed the Cygnus mystery and read it from cover to cover, and then The Cygnus Key came out, which talks about the Denisovans, the Thunder people, and the connection with the Cygnus constellation as the celestial swan. And just one last thing, Andrew. We talked about the Orion constellation overlay right here in Arizona, And my friend Gary David, who now lives in Tucson, but I'm inviting to join us, wrote a book
Right.
about the Orion zone. And he took the
Yeah.
entire Orion constellation and overlaid it on Arizona with the 3 belt stars aligning with the 3 Hopi mesas, just 45 minutes north of us here up near Flagstaff and Wupatki. And then he showed how the different stars of the constellation would end up in really auspicious sites, like Canyon de Chelly, for instance. It actually showed the head of the constellation right here in Sedona. And so now, you know, when I was studying about how Robert Bauval had overlaid Orion with the pyramids at Giza, it occurred to me that maybe we had a Cygnus overlay here in Sedona, and then you would have the 3 stars with the heart and the tips of the wings as the 3 stars aligning with the Hopi mesas. And if that were the case, then it's possible that the head of the swan overlays with a rock here in Sedona called Pyramid Rock, which you can clearly see from the 3 Hopi mesas all the way down into the horizon, a clear pyramid sticking out over the horizon. So we contacted an archaeoastronomer who right away responded and said, did you know that Pyramid Rock actually aligns with the head of the celestial swan, Cygnus?
Oh.
So
then confirmation of your intuition. Okay, well look, both Orion and Cygnus have a symbiotic relationship with each other. They're both as important, and in the past they were the 2 key constellations in the path of soul's death journey. I mean, basically what would happen is that, you know, either in death or during the death experience of the shaman, they would make this leap of faith from, you know, the place of the living, if you like, to the horizon, and they would pick up the Milky Way with one specific star within the sword of Orion, not the belt, just below the belt, and it was the what they called the Messier object M42, which was one of the stars in the sword, and they would pick that up, and then they would go along the Milky Way until the Milky Way forked into 2. Now it forked where the stars of Cygnus are placed, and Cygnus represented the judge. So it then determined where the soul would go next, whether it was cast to oblivion, reincarnated, or went into the afterlife and could continue the journey. And that judge was this bird-headed shamanic figure, like the Thunderbird, basically. In fact, in Ojibwe tradition, as I say, Cygnus is the Thunderbird. So it was almost like the celestial form of the Thunder People, or one of the Thunder People. And so, you know, both of these constellations have this relationship. And I mean, Robert Bauval's a very good friend of mine. Obviously, we have lively discussions about the importance of Cygnus and Orion, you know, places around the world, obviously Giza in particular. But the true answer is that both of the constellations are incredibly important at both places, in Egypt and in North America. So, you know, they both need to be looked at, you know, together.
Yes, it would be so fascinating to see the significance of Cygnus here in Arizona, and particularly the head of the swan here in Pyramid Rock in Sedona. We'll see what your intuition tells us when you get here, Andrew.
I mean, I shall be treating the whole thing as a psychic quest. You know, in other words, it's fate that I'm in Sedona. Something's going to happen whilst I'm there, and I hope that everybody is with me whenever that is happen. I mean, I'm sure I'm going to have dreams. I'm sure we're going to have visions. You know, I'm sure I'm going to see things during meditations, and let's see where it goes. Let's do some psychic questing.
It sounds good. It promises to be an extraordinary, life-changing experience, Andrew, and we're so very excited about your visit. Come one, come all. It promises to be such an exciting adventure. So thank you very much for joining us, Andrew.
Thank you for inviting me.
We'll see you in 10 days.
Absolutely. Okay.
Many blessings.